advisory committee says. And that's a separate thing. That's not something that we all pass. It's information that goes to the voter. I see somebody thinking hard over there.
No,
He's ready to answer it. Thank you.
So, if there's a warrant article on here that involves money, the selectmen must express an opinion on the warrant and on the ballot as to whether or not it should pass. If the warrant article is amended at this meeting, the selectmen must meet in public and decide what they're going to say about the amended warrant article on the ballot.
Okay. All right.
So we're still back to the concept of the wording, no amount of taxation, no amount to be raised from new taxation. Okay. Yes.
I agree with that should be put in. My question is that once you get through this one, we've already gone through the other articles, and can we go back on Article 3, Article 7, Article 12, Article 13, and also put in no amount to be raised from taxation?
Good question. I think that's the point about which they are discussing, and they will try to determine that. I don't.
Well, I think to Bobby,
Yes.
if we wish to go back and make motions to amend those to say exactly that, we can do so as long as we're still in this meeting.
Right.
Correct?
I agree. But that would be something to do after we finish this particular Article 14. Okay, it can't be part of Article 14. It would have to be a separate process. So, continuing, do we have further discussion just on Article 14 on the adding the words, the wording, even for this new taxation? Yes, Joy.
I have a question. As far as if after this meeting, DRA says, no, you can't change the wording, could we then have an explanation from the selectmen when it's sent out that through the consensus of everyone here, that that language should have been? I mean, can you do
Yes.
something like that? Just to explain to the broader community, if it can't be changed. It can be.
Yes.
I'm sure it can.
Okay, so we're actually working on a safety clause for this because there's enough concern that this passes that we want to have the no amount to be raised from new taxation phrase on this one. It's possible that we can return to, then open up a new article that would ask that that phrase be included on anything, again, just to make sure that we're covering all our bases. Yes, Michael?
We can move the question as amended.
All those in favor of moving the question signify by raising your cards, please. Thank you. And opposed. Thank you. All right, let's see if I can do this now. Okay. All those who are in favor of adding to this the phrase, no amount to be raised from new taxation, signify by raising your cards, please. Thank you. Opposed? So now we're still working on Article 14, the amended, which now should read, to repair the stone retaining walls adjacent to the town offices, to see if the town of Alstead will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the purpose of repairing the stone retaining walls adjacent to the town offices. The sum of $10,000 to come from unassigned fund balance as of December 31st, available on January 1st. No amount to be raised from new taxation. The selectmen unanimously recommend this article, majority vote required. That's your amended article. Any discussion on that? Yes?
Question for clarification. With doubling the amount, does this now mean to repair both adjacent walls, or is it a loophole either or?
Would someone like to address that question? Both? Is that your answer? It's to try to repair both walls? Okay, Michael?
What I took that to mean was it gave us the opportunity to have enough money to do both walls. Should there be any left over, it goes back to the unassigned.
Fund balance. Correct. Okay. Is there further discussion? We will now vote on adopting Article 14 as amended. Does anybody need me to read it again? All those in favor of adopting Article 14 as amended, please raise your cards. Thank you. Opposed? Okay. I now direct the clerk to place the article as amended on the ballot. Article 15, unless, am I jumping ahead? Okay, somebody have a question? Okay. Article 15, to design, specify, and permit a replacement bridge. To see if the town of Alstead will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of designing, specify, and permit a replacement for the red-listed bridge over Darden Brook on the Cruiseville Brook. So
I would move that we place this on the ballot as read.
are there questions and comments? Yes.
So this is not the temporary bridge on Hill Road?
A little background. We have 3 bridges in town that have failed the state's inspection. We replaced one with a temporary bridge on Hill Road. The one that scares us the most is on the Drewsville Road up above. That carries what we decide our job, 226 trips a day on average, 18 school bus trips. That one is also on the failure list, and what this article proposes to do is to design and permit a replacement in anticipation of that day when the state comes to town with absolutely no notice and says, by sundown today, you may no longer use this bridge. The background on that, for those of you who haven't been following along at home, is that the Hill Road Bridge, Hill Road was closed for 14 months while we scrambled to do what this warrant article allows us to do ahead of time.
Okay.
So it's just a way to be ready for what's really coming our way, whether we like it, whether we're ready or not. About no new taxation? Yes. There you go, I've already written it out. Good. I'm proposing that we amend this puppy to include the words, no amount to be raised from new taxation.
Second.
Is there a discussion on the amendment of adding the phrase, no amount to be added in new taxation? All those in favor of adding that phrase, which is by now very familiar to us, please indicate by raising your cards. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. All right. So now we will discuss the amended article, which is this full thing, but with the phrase, no amount to be raised from new taxation. Is there further discussion on the amended article? Rich?
I just have a question. The $50,000, what, can you give us some feel for whether you got bids or estimates on where that amount comes from?
I have one bid from GM2 Associates. It's in the office for peer review. It's essentially design, specification, and permitting for a 50-year bridge that will meet the state's requirements. It does not depend or, it does not live or fail based on the availability of state bridges. So this is an attempt to provide a local opportunity to solve that problem instead of waiting for the legislature to solve it.
That's for 50,000. And it's the intention to probably rebid that, or, I mean, it's only,
2 more times.
okay, great. Thank you.
I couldn't get anybody else to bid on it unless there was an appropriation.
There's further discussion, Michael?
Did anybody ask that design firm how comfortable they felt with the longevity of that design?
This was the 50-year answer.
I know the solution, if the state came in today and said, yeah, that's a good plan. My larger inquiry is, okay, in 8 years, the state says, no, those numbers you use, those, as we have found out before, the actuarial, stuff is different now. Now we decided that your snow load is this, or that much, or that could hold that much water. My worry is actually paying for design that becomes obsolete when we go to design, when we go to replace the bridge itself.
It's difficult to imagine how you can prevent taking a risk like that in the present to prepare for an uncertain future. And I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure I can answer your question.
Yeah, I think the only way I can imagine it working would be to raise and appropriate the amount to do the specification, the design, and the bridge all at once. Because there's always going to be a lag before the state comes and says, no more driving. Yeah.
Is there additional discussion on Article 15? Yes, Bob.
Take this one step further. Take this one step further. Assuming that this is approved, and it's some years down the road that we have to do the work because we're threatened for the road to be closed. I think Mike's point was, would our design fit the need at that particular time? I don't know the answer to that question. I have no idea. So would it be prudent to not have this at this time approved, or at least, I guess you have to vote on it, but should it not be zeroed out? Because if it's true that it's some years down the road and we've spent this $50,000, I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if we can be assured that this design would be good for X number of years, at least we have the information. The public would have that information to make that decision. Do we have any experience, past-wise, on appropriating designs 5, 10, 15 years in advance? Do we have any experience on that?
The experience we have is mostly in not doing this. So we know how much it costs and how long it takes not to do this to reopen a road. The answer to that question is $75,000 in 14 months for a temporary bridge. Wait, the permits have a life. So Mike's objection has a date. So if we take this action, which I still sort of recommend, we take this action and we achieve the design and the design is permitted, the permit has an expiration date. And up until that point, no matter what changes anywhere else in the world, we'll be allowed to build that bridge with our money. Let's be clear, this is not the bridge we're building here, this is just the first part. However, something I've learned recently, Jeff, and you can help with this, is if we let the bridge fail or be condemned, which is really what's going to happen, then it's a whole lot cheaper and quicker to permit it because now it's an emergency.
Right.
That's a dirty trick, and it's not good government, but it is still true. Jeff?
Thank you for giving us an information.
Not here. Go ahead, Jeff.
Mike's point, it's a valid point. However, in time frame, things are going to change in code. So, maybe the low rating would change on a bridge, so that would need some additional, review by whoever had the design at that point. They had some rebar, such a thing. Design standards as far as, what are set for flow through there, that may change. So it may mean the bridge would be wider. But the basis of design would always be saying. You know what I mean? Once they came out with a design of bridge, so it would be an amendment on that design path. So I think the investment to make and do the design and permitting now is a valid investment, you know, and you may, yes, you know, if it happens 10 years from now, you may have some additional costs that they can do some redesign to it, get it to it, you know, applicable codes, but it's not a take the 50 and throw it all out and stack from scratch, without a doubt. As far as the permitting goes, as Joel said, most permitting is up to a certain date, but in most cases, if you got the permit to begin with, you then apply for an extension on that permit. You know, they'll just quickly do a review, see where we're at, if there's anything changed, then they'll extend the permit.
Could I, excuse me, just to follow up on that, how long do these permits good for? How many years?
5 years.
Five years.
So that's not very long.
That bridge is in rough shape.
I'm not disputing that, because we can always, if there's an emergency that should transpire, the closing of the bridge by the state, there is another process to go grab money out of the fund balance to fix this. You'd have to have another meeting like this to approve that, and that's, you know, a bit cumbersome. But I'm just concerned about the 5-year period running out and we do nothing.
Michael?
With this $50,000 properly invested, how much more will the bridge cost? Are there grants that would be applied to that project ultimately?
There's a wonderful 80-20 grant program called Bridge Aid that the legislature has put on hold and has not funded, and shows no likelihood of funding in the future. But we have reserved our places for these 3 bridges now for 80-20 funding. That is the 20 on this side. That particular Drewsville, 20% of that Drewsville project is estimated to be between $120,000 and $160,000. But those numbers should not be dependent on to make public policy. Period.
So 20% of the project's $120,000?
Costs a lot of money to build a code class bridge, even if it's a town bridge.
Yes, Bruce?
Question to Joel. You were very involved in the first bridge that failed on Hill Road.
But it wasn't my fault.
Second, they at the same time have respected the other 2 bridges, the one at the top of the hill and the one on the Drewsville Road. They've been on the red list for how long?
12 years.
12 years. Did they give you any inclination how soon they're going to condemn the other 2?
That's not what they do. What they do is they publish a big report, which you can look at in the town office any old time, and some of it can actually be read by most of these engineers speak. The bottom line is there's a percentage value of service life, and that number gets smaller for us every year by some percentage points. They now come every year because these bridges are on the red list. We're talking about Comstock, the Upper Hill Road Bridge, and the Drewsville Road Bridge. The one that we need the most and the one that's the most likely to fail, the one that's likely to fail the soonest, in my interpretation of the service life, is the Drewsville Road Bridge. So that's what this is about, although in a perfect world, we would design a solution for the other 2 at the same time.
So I guess my comment is, if we've been on the red list on that particular bridge for 12 years, we're getting down to the bottom of the pile here. And if we've got another 5 years with our permit, then maybe we have to get some amended extension. I think it's good to go ahead with this warrant article. Because you know what, some of you folks know what you went through when the Hill Road was closed. And some of you people who live on Fair Brook Road know what they're going through when they showed up and closed that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm sure they're in the process now of trying to get design and stuff. So I'd be in favor of this article.
Further discussion? Joel?
I have a question. How long does the design process take with an engineer working on this? How much?
4 to 8 months for this one firm. That's a very small sample.
Michael?
I appreciate all the clarification, you know, I do indeed support it, it really wasn't, I was just clarifying, I appreciate that. So with all that we now know, has there been discussion And is there any chance in the next couple of years that we may see a bond then?
I can't speak for these guys, but that bond has never been on my horizon. My goal is has been to convince the legislature to eventually do the right thing and provide that funding.
Good luck with it.
Yeah. Remember in November. That's what I always say.
Okay, Michael?
Just a comment, I think I support this article. 30 years ago, the word Darby Brook loomed large in the highway department, and they passed ordinance and spent a lot of time up there working on it. However, I think the passage of the water, the hydraulics in that area will warrant the improvements.
Is there further discussion, or are you ready to move for a vote on this article? Going to read the entire thing. To design, specify, and permit a replacement bridge. To see if the town of Alstead will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of designing, specify, and permit a replacement for the red-listed bridge over Darby Brook on the Drewsville Road. The sum of $50,000 to come from unassigned fund balance as of December 31st, available on January 1st. No amount to be raised from new taxation. The selectmen unanimously recommend this article. Majority vote required. All those in favor of Article 15, please raise your cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Thank you. I would ask the clerk to place Article 15 as amended on the ballot. It's 5 minutes to 12. I promised that I would check in with you and see if you want to take a break or if you want to keep on going. Before sense of the meeting is to push forward. Yeah. Starting to smell pretty good. Okay. Article 16, to discontinue new town hall capital reserve fund. To see if the town of Alstead will vote to discontinue the new town hall capital reserve fund created in 2009. Do I have a motion on that? Are you recommending that? Is there a second to that motion? Thank you. Is there discussion?
Yeah.
John?
John, do the funds have to be returned anywhere immediately, or can they be retained in the fund for pending further action by the town?
Well,
Does discontinue mean you take the money out?
the short answer is that should this pass unamended, the short answer is that money sometime during the 2016 fiscal year will be taken away from the trustee of trust funds, dropped straight into the operating fund for the town, and not available for the voters to spend until the following fiscal year. So it simply becomes part of the unassigned fund balance.
Good enough. Thank you.
Complicated enough?
No, but thanks anyway.
With that,
I thank you for your patience with me. Can I have a little bit of history on what this fund was for and why it's being proposed to be eliminated?
somebody like to speak to this?
I get mad at
Yeah, this is a fund that was originally my idea, and I take responsibility for it.
Sorry,
We are in this building, which is the school.